My name is Linda Derry, and welcome to the CISTA Girl Environmental Club TV show. Today, my special guest is Miss Stephanie Ellen Almeida.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I am Miss Tourism Connecticut, which you know. I also act and host here in New York City. I've been living here for the past 6 years. And since then, I've been really involved with a lot of environmental organizations in the tri-state area.
Thank you. So today our topic is pollution and sustainability all around the world. And you travel a lot, right?
Yes.
You have my dream life. I've always loved to travel. I love the idea of traveling. I don't even have a passport yet. So now we all want a better earth and environment, not only for where we live, but everywhere around the world.
Right.
We also need to take care of it and take preventative measures to stop pollution.
Yes. So traveling to all of these cities around the world, you really see how the environment affects people's lifestyles. My recent trip to Beijing, when you go to a major city, New Delhi, Beijing, Paris, you can really tell the difference between the people that live in the cities, and even in New York, the cities and the suburbs. Mm-hmm. And just the way that they go through their normal days are so different. The things that they worry about, the way that they go about everything, and the way that they become sustainable, the things that they do to better the environment. It's just so different. So when I went to Beijing, something that you don't really see a lot in your home country is when you go to other countries around the world and you watch their local news. You never see the local news of cities in your city. So when I went there and there were headlines on the TV and in the newspapers, tourists flee in search of clearer airs, you're like, people are leaving here because they can't breathe, because there's too much pollution. Also children, when adults choose to have children, they have to move out of the city because their child will develop respiratory issues as they get older. So to know that in Beijing, the city with billions of people, is actually already being adversely affected by their air, by their pollution. It's affecting their economy, it's affecting their lifestyle, the way that they raise their children. So when you see this, and you see also cities like New Delhi in India, who also have big environmental problems, when you see it firsthand, and you're in an underdeveloped country, and you live in a place like the United States or any other developed country, you think that this will never happen to me. This will never affect my lifestyle. Even if it, does affect our planet, I'll be long gone before then. And that's not true, because you see these major cities who are already being affected by all of this pollution, by the environmental harm that we're doing. And major cities is really where it starts. When you look at New York, when you look at Paris, when you look at Beijing, they are major contributors to the problem, of course. There's so many of us. And that's fine, and no one's to blame. It's just the lifestyle we grew into, and now we really, really have to take these preventative measures to fix it. So a lot of the things that I see when I go abroad, the ways that I learn, is watching the news, talking to the locals, and visiting the major cities. That's really the best way to learn about a culture. No matter how long you're there, that's always the best way to learn about a culture. So when I speak to the locals and I hear that the air is 80% pollution and 20% fog, you don't believe it. And you walk outside and you're like, no, there's no way. It's just fog. No, and then, there's pollution sitting in the air that they breathe. When I went out to Beijing, I was there my first 2 days. And every time I went outside, the concierge at my hotel would be like, you don't have a mask? And I'm like, no, I'm only here for a couple days, no big deal. And they're like, no, you can't go outside without a mask. Like, it was things that you see in the movie, in the future, a couple years from now, where we're all wearing gas masks and the sky is black. I mean, it was a little bit of a reality there. And in New York, in Paris, in these, upper scale cities as well, you see this issue. And people really just don't want to address it because they don't think it's as urgent as it is. But it's already happening. It's not something in the future. It's not something that could happen. It's not something that somebody else is going to fix for us. It's something that we have to take preventative measures in all the time, every single day, to make better. And when you live in a major city, it's like you have the responsibility to start and to be the pioneer, because it's our fault. It's our fault. So, we have to take responsibility and find a way to fix it.
Yeah. That's definitely it is our fault pretty much, and it's not necessarily like the things that maybe you at home, maybe like you specifically didn't do anything, but it's just like how we were not raised. Like this is how like we came in to oil drilling, we came in to hydrofracking, and we came in to like this is how we've been living, and we kind of feel like it's a necessity, but it can be in some ways it is a necessity. Some things that we do need to do that for, but a lot of things like aren't, like you don't need that.
Exactly, and that's a huge thing that I think people are letting themselves be so affected by the media, and so I don't want to say brainwashed, because again it's not, but we let the media tell us what will make us happy. And we need, like 1 million different pairs of clothes and 1 million cars and all of these things that we really don't need and are just taking up the resources of the rest of the world. And visiting the more underdeveloped countries, because obviously that's where, a lot of these things are happening, because they don't really know how to control it. They don't really get as educated as we do about the environment. So when you see cities that are covered in pollution, I mean, really covered, like every street is covered in plastic bottles and pieces of paper. I mean, it's scary to know that, we're not getting away from that. We're getting into that. This is just the beginning of pollution. And yes, we have acknowledged that it's an issue, but many, many people still live for their singular generation. They're not thinking of the next or 10 generations forward. And that really becomes a problem. And I know that our government recently left the Paris Agreement, and that was huge, The Paris Agreement didn't keep us to any restraints. We didn't have to do anything on there, but it was the countries coming together and acknowledging that there was a problem and realizing, hey, we really are negatively affecting our environment. We do need to do something to stop it. And it was a huge, huge idea for all of us to come together and say, we're going to change the world. We're going to make it better. And even though we've pulled out in the U.S., which I wish we would go back on, but I don't think a piece of paper really makes a difference. Now that people have acknowledged that we have a problem, I think that whether that piece of paper is there or not, people are really, really inspired now more than ever to make a difference. And that's huge. That's huge. Especially in New York City, you have communities in Queens and Brooklyn and even in Manhattan who are really, really doing some cool stuff to make a difference. And I mean, you see it everywhere now, and the shirts and the everything. So at least it's a trend, and hopefully that trend sticks.
Exactly. Because to be honest, not many trends stick around, but hey, this is a cause like worth sticking around, and this is a trend worth sticking around that people should actually think about and keep on working at it. And I have read studies that I'm gonna be completely honest, the world may or probably most likely won't go back to how it was when it started and how it was before all this pollution. But hey, we can try. Acknowledging it is the first step, but now we have to take action.
Action. And that's, exactly. And that's it. And it, as long as everybody takes responsibility, and it starts at home. It starts at home. Like, a lot of people don't think that they can make an impact, but you can. It only takes one person to make a difference. And so there's a lot of little ways at home that you can make a difference. And if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find 100,000 DIYs and tips and tricks. So there's definitely no lack of information. There's plenty of ways that you can become sustainable at home. And the average sustainable family can save up to $2,500 a year. Then that's life-changing money for some families. And when you think about it and you're like, why? Why am I not doing this? Because, it's not really that big of a step to go from not sustainable to sustainable. A big thing is light bulbs. A lot of people don't think that's that important, but electricity is a majority of the way that we can save energy right now efficiently with the ways that we have evolved in it. So getting those light bulbs, if you think about the amount of light bulbs you buy a year, which you may not know because you're too young to buy your own light bulbs, but when you're buying light bulbs, you're buying 15 to 25 a year. And with these energy-saving light bulbs, you buy one, it lasts you for 10 years. So you're not buying light bulbs for 10 years and you're saving money. And that's why I don't understand why people just don't do it. And there's so many other little ways. And clothing. I know you've talked about clothing. Clothing is huge. A lot of people have a really negative stigma around thrift shops or, resale stores, and they shouldn't, because that's honestly the future. With fast fashion, as you know, we're buying clothes more rapidly, throwing them out more rapidly now more than ever. And only 20% of the clothes that we actually donate gets donated. The rest of it sits in piles in West Africa and India. And with the recycling of anything, it's like people only think of that one-time effect where, I'm throwing this out and it's garbage, and okay, I guess I polluted. Oh, I guess I wasted. But it's not that one-time effect. Like, everything, including our bodies, decomposes. And when it decomposes, it releases chemicals, sometimes harmful chemicals. In our clothing, when it decomposes, it releases harmful chemicals into the air. And some clothing, it takes 10 years, sometimes hundreds of years for things to decompose. So you're saying that one shirt you threw out and it ends up in a landfill is going to cause 10 to 100 years of chemical damage to our environment. And a lot of people don't think of the long-term effects, don't really understand how fast it's all coming. Because maybe, oh, I don't go shopping that much, but, you know, we are a community and we are a world that, I mean, we're responsible for each other. So you really have to think with one mind as a global community when it comes to that. So having that negative stigma around thrift stores and stuff, it shouldn't. I love thrift stores. If ever I need new jeans, right? I found a fur coat once for faux fur. I'm sure it was faux fur because it was not that expensive. But for $50, that looked really like I spent, you know, $2,500 on it. I mean, there's just so many treasures, and there's so much about our history, and I just think that more people definitely should think about not only donating and buying from donated stores, but also passing clothes down. Hand-me-downs, I live on hand-me-downs. Like, I love hand-me-downs. So passing them down to your family members or your friends' children, I mean, that makes a huge, huge impact that people kind of overlook, the whole clothing aspect. And a lot of containers, which is another one. One of the best things, my favorite things that I do at home is I use jars. So I use a lot of coconut oil for everything, to cook, to wash my hair, to brush my teeth. I use coconut oil for everything. And I end up with like hundreds of these little glass coconut oil containers, pickle jars. I can't think of it, jelly, peanut butter. Those jars are perfectly fine. Just wash them out. I make fruit salads and I take them to go, you know, any type of salad, any type of deconstructed snacks. It's a great, great way to not use plastic baggies or containers, and they're really nice, they're really sturdy, they're small, they're compact. So reusing your containers, 35 billion plastic bottles are thrown out. There's so many uses. I mean, just Google it. There's so many uses for your old plastic bottles, and I'm sure you can reuse some of them, or really, really make an effort to recycle and put them in a recycling bin. That's huge too. But there's so many ways that we can just reduce, reuse, recycle. That's not just paper, plastic. You know, there's the clothing, there's everything. So if everybody just makes an effort to do those little things, it can make a huge, huge impact.
Exactly. And the same way that happens, also those little things that like what you talked about, oh, I'm just throwing a little candy wrapper on the side of the road, or oh, I'm just throwing, it's one shirt, like it can't be that bad. It's how many years, 10 to over 100 years of chemical damage, as you said. And it's like this, but the same way that that those little things can add up and affect the world negatively, the little things, certain things that you can do can add up and affect the world in a positive way. For example, hey, maybe if you didn't throw the candy wrapper on the floor and put it in the recycling bin or put it in the garbage bin, that's good. Like, that's good for the world. It's one less piece of litter. And it's like, there's 7 billion people on this planet. So if everybody does one little act of, not just act of kindness, but an act of in being environmentally friendly and being good to the environment, being good to your environment, then that'll add up so much. Yes. And there's a statistic words that I always will remember. It's because I'm a teenager. I'm 13, and
I'm not a teenager anymore. So close.
I'm halfway teenager. I'm like a preteen-ish
You're
teenager.
A teenager. 13? Oh, I love that age. It's my favorite age. 13 forever.
Yeah, I can go see movies by myself now. It's
yeah.
great. If my parents will let me.
Positive. It only gets worse from there, so I'm just letting you know.
But yeah, like from now I'm being 13, from if you're a teenager now in this year in 2017, more likely than not, extreme effects of pollution, like 10 times worse than what we have currently, will affect you greatly in your lifetime. Whether it's maybe if you live on an off-coast island, if you live somewhere that's like super duper off-coast island, if you live somewhere that's on the coast, if you live in an island, in maybe 10, 20